The man, the myth, the legend, Travis. Sir Travis, maybe not quite yet.
No, I don't think we're going anyplace close to that.
You're a local legend here in the state of Oklahoma, really. I grew up watching you. My family grew up watching you. How long have you been a weatherman, a meteorologist?
The fall of '82, I came to Tulsa.
Okay.
And so that's been quite a while.
Yes.
And before that, I spent a year and a half or so up in Topeka, Kansas, and went from the University of Kansas to Topeka, Kansas for a little bit. They didn't have a meteorologist here because one of the meteorologists or the weather people that was here in Tulsa was at the time Mayor Terry Young. And so he couldn't be on TV the same time that he was also trying to become mayor of Tulsa because I guess there's some FCC rules or something like that.
Really?
So they had to kick him off real quick. Otherwise, they had to give equal time to whoever he was going against.
Oh, wow.
And so they said, we need a weather person immediately.
Okay.
And so that's how it started. And they said, and they interviewed, said, anybody want to go to Tulsa? And I said, I'll take that. Tulsa is tornadoes. It's like, cool, you know. And so I had a whole different attitude when I was younger. And then as soon as we got here and did the interview, they said, you're not much, but the owner is from a farm. You're from a farm. He wants to give you a 6-month trial. And he said, so we'll give you 6 months if you want to try it. And I said, okay. I had nothing to lose because I had nothing. So so I just packed my bags, and that was all I had, and came to Tulsa.
In 82?
In 1982.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said you were a different man.
Yeah.
What does that mean? You were fearful, fearless because of the tornadoes?
Well, you're younger and a little bit more fearless, and
Okay.
you don't have quite as much emotion for people because you're kind of used to doing your thing, and
Okay.
you're trying to get your life together. You're in your early 20s, mid 20s, and doing all that. So that was the biggest thing. And then when I had my first tornado, which was the spring of '83 in March in Bartlesville, I was like, oh my gosh, this tornado! I can interview people. They gave me a microphone. I didn't know what I was doing because I'd been on TV 2 or 3 times before I got to Tulsa.
Sure.
They were just desperate, is the bottom line. And so I learned a lot in a short period of time. But the biggest thing was that we ended up with a big tornado. And so I was trying to interview these people, say, where were you during the tornado? What was it like? What did you hear? And people were saying, get the heck off of my property. And because they lost everything. And I'm there just more trying to be a geek science and trying to think of that. And then after I walked away, I was like, why were they so mean? And then one of the photographers I was with said, well, you're not very smart because they just lost everything. And then that kind of was like the beginning of like, oh yeah, this isn't the fun I thought it was when we were chasing tornadoes.
Wow.
It's real.
Kind of like, would that be considered like bedside manner type situation?
Exactly.
Where you got to be a little bit sensitive there.
Yeah, a lot more sensitive.
So you came, or early on at least, you came to Tulsa, excitement about tornadoes specifically. Yeah. Is that, would you say, would make this job? I mean, without tornadoes, like if you were in, let's say, Arizona, not a whole lot going on.
No, you'd have to be good looking and smart.
Okay.
So there's a big difference. That's why you get away with a lot less here. But yeah, I mean, and the West Coast is kind of the same way. There isn't a whole lot. So you have, whatever it is, call themselves Storm Smith or whatever. And, and they're just good looking guys or women and stuff like that. And here it was different, especially in the 80s, because they were looking for weather people. And I was real interested. I will tell you one story that hit me, though, that was, when I first got here, I was not prepared for Native American names. And so when I got here, I knew Tulsa, and that was probably about it, Oklahoma City. But then the chief meteorologist at the time was Don Woods. It was at the Channel 8 station, the ABC affiliate in Tulsa. And he had been doing the weather because they couldn't have the Mayor Young on the air for like 6 months. So he did. And there was a time when there was only like 2 weather people. And so he was doing weather nonstop for months on end. And he said, I got to get out of here. And so I had never been on TV really before, besides just a couple times in Topeka. And so he leaves on Thanksgiving weekend. There's a tornado watch. So I'm like, wow, tornado watch. I know I'm in the right place in Oklahoma. And so I go to the National Weather Service. So I go over to where getting ready to do it. So and the National Weather Service has issued tornado watch for the following counties in Oklahoma: Tulsa, Okmulgee, Sequoia. Okay, got that.
Yeah.
McIntosh. Yeah. Cherokee. Okay. Pushma, Taha. What? And so then the audio guy comes running in and it's like, what? Well, we were on the air. He was thinking I was doing it for real, and I was practicing.
Oh, geez.
And so there was 600. It was a little under 700 letters because there was no emails back then.
Sure.
And so there was like 693 letters of telling me how to get out of Oklahoma.
Wow.
Because they said, if you don't even know
Wait,
our
how many?
names,
You
get out
knew
of
the
here.
number
I
of letters
remember
by.
Oh, I had to read every one and apologize to each one. My boss made me do that.
Like handwrite back. Oh my gosh. So one more time. How many letters?
693.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and they were pretty hateful. They were like, because I mean, I was filling in for the legend, because Don Woods is the legend of really Eastern Oklahoma with Gusty and all that. And so it's like, any place I went, it's like, why are you here? Where's Don? You know, so it was always that. And so, and when it started that way, I knew I was in trouble. But that was the way it began. And so I learned very quickly.
You kind of had a mountain to climb, it sounds like.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Because I was, more prepped for weather than I was for really what you have to do on the sides as well.
The politics almost.
You could call it that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of side things that you're
kissing
not really
babies, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you had to learn about birds, migration, some stuff that was, I mean, I could do it because I was a farm boy and, growing plants and gardens and stuff like that. But you would get so many letters wanting to know, because that was back before there was Google. And so people did not have good information. And so you're getting all these letters from people wanting to know about, why were the birds flying south? Why was the moon in this phase? When is the sunrise? When is the sunset coming up for Easter? And so you'd get 20 letters a day usually. You'd have to write a bunch back. Well, now it's, everybody looks themselves at what's going on.
Sure.
But it was a huge change in my world, for sure. So you had to do a lot of research.
You've mentioned several times now, grew up on the farm, grew up on ranch, whatever, close by, or no, you were saying you were in Kansas?
I went to school in Kansas, but I grew up on a farm and ranch in Nebraska.
Okay.
So that's where I started loving weather, because it was, man, it never rained up there. It's like Western Oklahoma. You pray and pray for rain, and there's nothing but dust coming down. And so that was probably the biggest thing, was just trying to, I was like, God, please let it rain, please. And the only time it rained was, maybe 2 or 3 times in the summer, and you'd hope that it hit when there was a decent, for your crops and all that. And that was the only time my dad ever took me fishing or we got to take a break. So we worked nonstop. And when it finally rained, that was our break time.
What would you say that was was that part of you getting intrigued with weather?
Yes, 101%.
Okay.
I was looking at every cloud that came on the horizon out in western Oklahoma, or I should say western Nebraska and western Kansas, because I was near the Kansas state line.
Okay.
So if I could see a cumulonimbus cloud building in the distance, I'd say, God, please, let it rain. Let it rain.
Yeah.
So that was, and so I'd follow it, and you'd go one way for a half mile and then or a half hour almost, because you have to go real slow, and then you turn around and drive back the other way. So you'd see the cloud form, and then you'd drive back to the east, then you'd look back to the west again another 40 minutes later, and you say, oh my goodness, look at that. So that's where the inspiration came from, like, I got to know more about this. This is pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool. How old were you when I'm assuming just college age, of working on the farm most of your life with your dad?
I was on a tractor when I was 6 years old, and I had a belt that was wrapped around me so I wouldn't fall off the tractor. It was a small tractor, but I had to mow alfalfa. And so he has pictures of that. So I was doing that, just going around in circles. I did get some pretty serious...
he was serious right now.
Yeah.
Like you said, I had to.
Yeah.
Like he required you at a very young age to do the chores.
When you're on a farm, it's
wow.
like, you're not like, hey, you, come here. I got something for you.
Right.
He's not hauling out the trash.
Right.
That's for sure.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So as young as you can remember, obviously hard work has a lot to do with some of the instrumental things that you learned early on.
It was. And, at the time, because I didn't know anything else, it's just how I've lived my life, was just kind of, they said, you're a workaholic. I said, not really. I mean, I like work. It's fun, especially if you're capable of doing something. And so that's where I like doing, kind of spinning multiple dishes, and you could say, because it's fun having a ranch and doing the weather, going out and talk to schools and do things like this. And so it's, to me, just a kind of a fun thing, just to be able to see different things, do different things.
Sure. So moving to Tulsa, you got obviously involved with what you're doing today. When did you want to go back to, I would say childhood, but when would you want to go back and want to have a ranch or want to have a farm yourself? Because I know you're very active on your own land.
Yeah. I swore that I'd never go back to a farm or
Okay.
a ranch, because I worked so much on it. And so I love living in Tulsa, and this is like, I don't have to do anything. I go to work, I go play tennis, and this is incredible. This is great. And then all of a sudden I started kind of wishing that I could kind of get out of town,
Okay.
and I couldn't play golf worth a darn. So it was like, I'd just throw golf clubs in in the water holes or whatever. And so I just get mad and just like, this is ridiculous. So I said, I got to find someplace just out of town and try to find some peace and quiet. And then as kind of technologies come along and science, you spend so much time with your face in a monitor like everybody does. But it was like, I didn't grow up that way. And so there was a tug that was kind of pulling me. It's like, you need to get outside. You need to go hug a tree. You need to go stare at maybe a tree trying to grow for a year or so. So those were things that kind of pulled me away and tried to get me back out into someplace. Plus, it makes it so much easier when you live that kind of life. It's a lot easier to relate to people who actually work construction or who do agriculture and stuff like that. Because when you live in the city, it kind of, you kind of get kind of framed into, you think kind of everybody else, goes from their car straight to work, from work back, or working in their house. And there's a lot of people, they're out there on the streets, roads and stuff like that, taking care of stuff. So it helps me kind of understand that and make me understand what those people are going through.
Sure. Would you say it's a big disconnect for you to being out there and
yes.
Being in nature versus being here?
Oh my gosh. I want you to go with me sometime and stare at a cow for about 3 hours. And then,
what are we watching here? When you stare at cows, what are we looking at?
Nothing but a cow.
Okay.
And occasionally they'll bellow or something like that.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that kind of brings your, I guess, I don't know, I say your energy level, it kind of pulls you down a little bit, but it's not in a bad way.
Okay.
It's how everybody tries to find their peace, their yoga, whatever it is that they try to find.
So how many heads of cattle do you have or do you run?
In Nebraska, you can't ask that question because that's how rich a farmer or rancher is.
Oh, okay.
Here, I have about 60 head.
Okay. All right.
So, but I'm getting ready to get rid of some of them, only because the city is taking over my land. So there, a lot of housing additions are going on right now.
Okay. So 60. Are you? What kind of cows are they? Are these beef cows?
They're beef cows.
Okay.
So I like to raise them and have mamas that have the babies, and then I'll sell them when they're about 6 to 8 months old, and then somebody else raises them on up from there.
Do you eat your own meat?
Well, my dad, that's been his biggest thing. My dad is 95. He just retired a couple years ago from ranching, and so up until just two and a half years ago, that was his big thing for Christmas. Everybody got a half a beef or a full beef, depending upon how big your family was and all that.
Sure.
So I am just finishing that off. So I have yet to raise my own beef because Papa has been taking care of me for a long time.
That's really funny. I literally, just a little side note, a good friend of mine has a family farm in a ranch, I guess. Please, what is a farm? What is a ranch? Is there? Let's maybe.
Yeah, we could separate those two out a little bit. Some, because you kind of have to have a little bit of balance. My dad had farm and ranch because when cattle were high, sometimes the prices for corn or soybeans or wheat were low. And
so farm is agriculture and ranch is more animals.
More animal agriculture.
Okay, I'm glad.
There you go.
Maybe I'm a little bit of an idiot for not knowing that, but
hey, a lot of people anymore don't have any clue because you're so far away.
Side note, they run a ranch in Arkansas. And he just called me. He's like, "Hey, you want any beef?" And I'm going to order half a cow for the first time. Super excited about it.
See, and a lot of there's been a lot of pullback away from having too many hormones and stuff in cattle and all that. So that'll be kind of cool because that's what we try to do as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, we're going to dive into the world of weather. Okay, lots of questions here. Right. I can't not say this. You are not only a legend, but you're also a candle. Your face is on trinkets and all kinds of fun things. How do you feel about In Trav We Trust?
I ask the Lord every night to make sure that candle does not interfere with my relationship with God at any time, because I was like, we saw that. But I want to set the record straight. I wasn't the only one with a candle, so our whole team ended up with candles. So,
I love this.
Stacia and
do you
Alan
have one at
and
home?
Steven.
Be honest.
Well, I do because I was giving it to my mom and dad, and they said, "What do we want to do with this?" I was like, "Never mind, I'll take it back." So we've got it sitting back in the corner.
Funny.
So
really
it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah,
that is really bizarre for me.
You almost feel like you've been kind of idolized in a lot of ways. Like, what do you like? I'm just trying to feel like from your perspective here, you did your job in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing your job. Yeah. So, and I don't look at it any different. I mean, it's like in 2019 when we had a lot of tornadoes. There was a lot of memes that came out. In fact, I didn't know what a meme was really then because I was kind of social media. I like it, but it's kind of like, I like the privacy too, so I don't like to share what I'm eating and all that stuff. Anyway, the memes came out, and I was like, what's a meme? Because I didn't even know what it was. Yeah. And they said, look at this. And so there was pictures of me and doing stuff. And I was like, what? Who's doing that? Because I had no idea that was really a big thing back then. And so, I mean, it is it makes me feel very humbled that people would even think of doing that for me or for our staff or anything. But for me, it's like it doesn't mean a lot other than I am just truly humbled. Somebody is going to watch TV, take time to watch us, and believe in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then I think that makes a difference too, because I was brought up to serve others, not to be served. So I try to stay away from that as much as possible. I love taking pictures at Tulsa State Fair with people, but it's like it's the only time that we really get to see a person, because in the studio, you're looking at a lens, you know. So the more I'm out, the more I get to see like real people that actually watch, and I give them hugs for watching. So sometimes they want to hug me, but I'd rather hug them.
Let's speak to that for a second. We're kind of stepping out from behind the lens and really experiencing what impact you've had outside of this studio. So early on in your career, it sounds like you were kind of dwarfed by this other shadow, if you will, Don
Woods.
Don Woods.
Yeah.
When did you experience for the first time, oh, not only do people know me, but maybe they trust me now? Or like, when was that? I don't know if there was a moment, a storm or something in your career that you're like, oh, wow, things have changed.
That's a good question. It's hard. I think it's just been a gradual thing through the course of time, because there was a meteorologist named Gary Shore in town, and then of course Jim Giles, who I had the opportunity to come in and work with here. And so I've always had to play. I don't know why it's kind of weird to say second fiddle, but I always felt like you're playing second fiddle to the people who had a tremendous amount of and they had a tremendous amount of influence in my life, because when I started, there was a guy named Gary Shore who was an extreme meteorologist and just a crazy, energetic meteorologist. And then you had Jim Giles, such a good guy. You had Don Woods, who is just a fantastic guy and a Christian and just kind of really balanced and given. Back when $100 meant something, he would give $100 to somebody who didn't have any money or was having low on their luck here in the studio or something. And so I got to see some things. And so some of those people reminded me of how my dad operated in terms of being kind and considerate and all that. So I kind of drew from them. I said, man, if I could be all three of those, that would be pretty cool. If you could be very engaged in severe weather, but yet at the same time be somebody that really cares about a garden, about people. And the only thing I can't do is draw worth a darn. So I couldn't draw Gusty, which at first when I saw Gusty, I was like, what is that? Because I couldn't even make it out at first. But he's the state cartoon, and he's in the Smithsonian, so it was pretty awesome, is all I can say.
A lot of people, as we stay in this main vein of almost celebrity status, if not local celebrity status, was there a moment that you were able, maybe here in the studio, maybe outside of here, that you had a little bit of a starstruck moment with somebody?
I do all the time, because I mean, even just if we have people coming in the studio, sometimes I get their autograph if they're here.
Who have you gotten some of the autographs?
Through the course of, it started a long time ago. When I was working at the ABC affiliate, I worked the morning show, so we'd have a lot of morning people coming in. So the first one was Wayman Tisdale. He was the first person that came in, and then country artists would come in. So I'm really enamored by country artists, and so if you find a country artist, I'm going to go try to get their autograph. And was
there a moment? Was there ever a moment a country artist or someone that you were trying to get their autograph already knew who you were and be like, oh, can I get one from you as well? Like an autograph exchange?
No, I mean, the Swan Brothers, I love the Swan Brothers. So we exchanged autographs.
That's funny.
That was fun. Roy Clark, which some people will know, he was from Tulsa, a tremendous fiddle player, guitar player, and country artist. But he had known Don Woods, and so he knew me through Don Woods. And so he and I got back when we had to take almost instamatic picture, whatever it was, because I remember I couldn't have a picture right away, so I had to wait, and he signed his autograph, and he said, I want a picture of you. And so that was fun. That was a fun moment just in my life. It's like, really? Yeah. And I just started.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
So from 82 till today, what? I don't even know the math. What's the math on that? How long have you been
42 years.
42 years. Yeah. Was there, and maybe there's probably different tiers here, but is there a number one, number two, number three? Is there like a storm that sticks out as the scariest one that you're like, geez, this is bad. Like, this is bad for Tulsa. This is bad for, could be Owasso, broken. Like,
two of them.
Okay.
Well, three counting the Bartlesville thing. That was the first shock of like realizing humanity existed versus science. The second one was in 1986, Morris tornado. there was a tornado that went through a small town, Morris, which is south of Tulsa near Okmulgee. And I was working with Don Woods at that time, and we had teletype, which is about 50 words a minute or something like that. We had ham radio spotters, didn't have near the technology, no cellular, nothing like that. And it's kind of hard to believe how much things have changed when we go back
Sure.
and just talking through my lifetime here. But the warning came out for a baseball to near softball size hail in Okmulgee. So Don is at the weather wall, and I'm handing him all the latest data. And so it says...
And weather wall, you're talking about just the green screen
The green
here.
screens.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he's standing there, and I hand him the first one, say, okay, we have baseball, softball size hail in Okmulgee, and that's headed toward Morris. If you're in Morris, you better put your cars in the shed before that gets to you and all that. And a second later, the teletype beeps this really bad beep, which was, you could tell it was a bad warning because it would have a special beep for bad things. And so I ripped it off. It says, tornado has hit Morris. Well, we just, 30 seconds before, we said, hey, if you're in Morris, go put your truck in the shed. Well, at that time, a tornado was hitting Morris. The Tulsa World did a story afterwards. I went down there right afterwards. It was awful. And we didn't warn them. We warned them for hail, not for a tornado. And that was just that was a huge pivotal point in my life. I said, God, please, something's got to give, because it's almost like we killed people, because we told them to go out to take care of something while there was a tornado literally in their face. And I felt terrible, and I saw from the Tulsa World where there was like 9 people passed away from the tornado. And so that for some reason hit me really hard. And so that just took me to another level. Said, someday we've got to have better science, better radar, stuff like that, because this is ridiculous. And then 1993, pretty much the Catoosa tornado hit then. And so that was like our first moment where we actually had a radar. We kind of saw it coming, but still a lot of our guys, came upon that we were following it, but it was like, man, it's still not there. It's so frustrating that it was like, we're so close to having this down, happened so fast, but we knew it was possible. We were better, but it was still people passed away. And a lot of our storm trackers lost their windshields from hail and had a hard time chasing the storm and all that, trying to keep reports. And then the worst was 1999, the Moore tornado. After I went there and saw that there was nothing left, it was just ground up. You couldn't tell houses. You saw a foundation, but you had no idea if there was a house. Most of the cars were compacted to the size between you and me, 6 feet. Maybe, and 4 feet wide. It was like they went through a trash compactor or something. I was like, how is this even possible?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so that took me to the next level of like, this is unreal, the power of nature. And so those are probably the most, it's been a gradual increase. And so now it is when there's storms, we don't want to be behind it. And so we try to have our trackers, we got to stay ahead of the storm, literally. And we got to stay in front of it in terms of being able to see it, because I spent too many years, two decades basically behind it.
Sure.
And I didn't want to ever see that again. So it inspires you to be stronger and trying to be much more aware, and you have the equipment now that we didn't have before.
You said something earlier when you were talking about that first storm, almost the responsibility that you had, that I failed so people died.
Yeah.
Do you still, that's pretty powerful, that's pretty heavy.
It has stayed in my life for a long time. People will say, man, you saved a lot of lives. I said, well, might have, but there's also several lives that might have been watching us that night that didn't know, and they were trusting. In the 80s, you didn't trust weather people all that much because there wasn't that much. Because when I was in the 70s growing up, I was laughing at TV weather people. I was not going to become a TV weather person. That was the last thing I wanted to do, because they were kind of goofy, and they'd have somebody grab an umbrella and pull them off the deal if they had a bad forecast with a handle. And I was like, those guys are so goofy.
Right.
I want to work for the National Weather Service. I want to be somebody serious.
Yeah.
And then TV kind of evolved, basically. And then it's evolved in my career, so much, from just guessing and thinking you have a correct scientific guess to now knowing. We can still get caught. And that's what still bothers us. There's still that little needle in the haystack you got to find.
How does that work now with so much technology? Like, when you're talking about getting sick, I can see ham radios and delays and I can see all that. But now in this day and age, you're saying there's a possibility. Where's that hole in the fence?
Well, we really think that AI is going to be probably taking over a lot of these warning areas because it's getting
Really?
close, just because it can see stuff as fast as we can, and really faster, because we're looking at the data as it's, coming in, we're analyzing it, and that can analyze it in a millisecond pretty much. And so we do believe over the next 5 years, maybe 10, that there's going to be a lot more help even compared to what we have now. The radars are so much better. We used to just scan going around circles. Now we scan around and we go up and down. So you're getting great three-dimensional views that I was praying for in the 80s and said, someday, probably 100 years from now, we'll be able to do that. Little did I know during the course of my career we'd be able to see that. So that technology, just like medical profession, science has come so far, and so we feel so much better about the warning. But even with the best warnings we have to this point, there are still places you go, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And you go,
Yeah.
how did that get through?
Right.
Where did that come from? And so those are the things that keep you up at night a little bit, because you're just constantly trying to keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah. How can I do this better?
Yeah.
So I'm going to probably ask you a question that you probably get asked a lot. New movie, not too long ago, Twisters.
Yeah.
How accurate are some of these crazy films?
Oh.
Are these wild for you guys to like chuckle in the back there? You're like, if they only knew, or
Yeah. Well, the original Twisters movie put in a whole new level of storm chasing,
okay,
which ended up being basically
like
to me
hobbyists.
Are
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that kind of became irritating, because then our professional guys that were going out, just like, there's like 2 miles of storm trackers and we can't even get through here. And so then with the helicopters, that has really changed. So we can adjust and hopscotch around a little bit more. But the problem is, and I'm not saying anybody's a yahoo, but I mean, when you're 16 years old and you're just learning meteorology, you don't drive into a tornado like YouTube thinks that you can. And so that's where my biggest fear is on this next movie, is because that's raising
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we got to preview it. Stacia and myself got to preview it with some of our storm trackers.
Oh, nice.
And so when we went to it, we were kind of like, we loved it because it was fun, and I mean, it was entertaining. It was Oklahoma, so you kind of, I know that place. I know those guys.
Right.
And one of our storm trackers was in it.
Oh, great.
And they had come here a couple of years ago, and they spent half a day with us, and they want to know everything about our storm tracking, how we storm track, when we send them out, when we send helicopters out, pictures, all that type of stuff. And so that became, I think, part of their movie, because we had a really good relationship with them. And then they asked other TV stations too, but that kind of helped them formulate, I think, kind of a little bit more of an accurate picture of what goes on. So
if they would ask you to be on, would you have done it?
That's a good question.
Like, I was just thinking about like they were just here. Why would they just say, "Hey, Trav"?
Yeah, they have, because I couldn't remember one line if I had to.
Okay, yeah,
So that'd be number one, because I ad-lib my whole life.
Okay.
Everything's an ad-lib. So if somebody tells me to memorize something, it's not a good
luck.
situation.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
That's funny. When was the mustache a part of the personality?
my gosh.
I feel like everything like that's been who we know as Travis Meyer.
I've tried to get rid of this thing for so many years. It just keeps coming back. It's I started when I was freshman in college, because my dad was very cut and dried. He was ex-military Air Force, and so he was very much clean cut, and for being dirty farmer, so to speak, he was a very clean cut person. And it was always funny when he'd get dirt. He's like, I'm like, you're a farmer. That's dirt that you got in your mouth. Big deal. But he was just kind of different that way. He's like to be clean.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was always had us clean cut and always had to have short hair. And that was back because I was just a little tiny kid in the 60s when the hippie revolution. I was like, I want to grow my hair long. And then the 70s, started being whatever, disco or whatever. And they had longer, foofy 70s, 80s hair. So I always wanted longer hair. So when I went to college, I said, I'm growing my hair, and I'm going to grow a beard, and I'm going to grow a mustache. And so that's where it started, and it never quit.
It stuck, and
yeah. And then the hair got a lot shorter, of course, for TV purposes. But the mustache was able to stay for whatever reason. Tried to get rid of it a couple times, and then my kids just about screamed bloody murder and ran out of the house, and they didn't know who I was. So I was like, okay.
we brought it back.
Yeah, we did. On vacations, they just said that I had the biggest lip between my nose and my teeth that anybody had ever seen. So
that's funny. So a year and a half ago, the Father's Day.
Oh, my gosh.
Crazy. Yeah. So there's lots to unpack here. Not only the storm. You were involved on your own little venture.
Oh my gosh.
Let's unravel this a little bit.
Unfortunately, about 10 years ago, I ended up getting divorced. And so that was really rough time, because it's hard to be happy and be on TV and then have some life event happen that is really hard. Families go through deaths and stuff that are on TV all the time, and you can hide some of those things just because it's easier. But when your family gets kind of torn apart, that's a really difficult time. So 10 years ago was a very rough time, and so it extended for 6 months to a year, and they said, oh, it's going to be like a death in your family. You got to get through this and all that. But I was kind of glad there wasn't any massive, terrible storms during that time, because the energy level was terrible. So fast forward, and I had the opportunity after waiting for a while and getting kids settled, kind of met somebody who was really awesome. And we decided, since she had a lot of kids, or she had 3 boys, and I had 2 boys that were all the same age. The last thing we wanted to do was really put them in the same house, and we needed to have respect for each other. So we waited a long time. And so we finally came to the point where we'd been dating for a long time, and we decided, okay, we've got the kids pretty much raised, and so it's our turn. And I said, well, mid to late June, usually, because we didn't want to do it in really hot weather. And I said, let's do it in mid-June, because most of these big storms are pretty much dying out by mid-June, and we should be in great shape. So as we get a week before the wedding, I'm going, oh, crud. Because it was showing up.
You saw it coming a week away.
Yes, you could start seeing a big storm system. So you really want to be around, because we need everybody. Because it's like you need everybody. Because it's a big thing. And, Stacia has a job. Aaron has a job.
But it's your wedding.
And it's my wedding. And it's like, so I was doing a lot of praying. And so we had the wedding in the afternoon, or noonish to afternoon. And it looked like all heck was going to
Was it
break
here
out.
in town? Okay.
It was out at the Tulsa, why can I not think of it? Just northwest of downtown. Tulsa, I got Tulsa Zoo in my brain. Tulsa, the garden, Botanic Garden.
Botanical Gardens, up in the Osage.
Yeah, up in the Osage. Okay. And so then Alan and Stephen and Stacia and my whole weather team said, don't even think of coming in here. We've got this. Don't even think of it. And because there was some, what we'll say, from 10 years before to 20 years before, I'm gone when there's storms, never home during those events. I was like, not going to start this out that way. Okay. I said, hope nothing
You've
bad
learned.
happens.
Yeah, you've learned, yeah.
And then we had a tent up in the backyard, and it was coming, and it was like we had family all over the place. And so I'm asking some of the bigger guys, you got to help me take the tent down. And Alan, I remember what Alan said. He says, I got this. And he's an unbelievable guy. And so him and Steven and the rest of the team were just, handled everything. But I thank God I have a fantastic team, because I was sitting there like, oh my gosh. Then we had to worry, because then trees are falling all over.
Sure.
Part of the tent's flying. You had about 50 or 60 family members there and trying to hide everybody so windows weren't blown out. So it was quite an emotional event for that day. I will say that. So you got a lot bigger story than you probably asked for.
No, it was great. I got the details. That's great. It was almost meant to be, right? It like wedding storm, like
it sealed the wedding.
Like this
that's
should
for
be.
Sure. That kind of was like stamped there. I said, okay, this is proof I can stay home, I guess. And trust everything else will work as planned. So it was quite the deal.
One of the things I find fascinating within the industry, we're gonna move away from your wedding, even though, side note, I did meet your wife. She's very kind. I just a quick hello. It was at Lights On at Guthrie Green. She was there.
That's right.
So anyways, I said hi, you guys.
And thanks.
Yeah, it looked great together.
So thank you very much. Need that at my age.
What I find interesting in the industry of reporting and weather, this shifting from this individual in this market to another market. And there seems to be, and maybe obviously you know this way better than I, but from reporters, maybe a little bit more of like moving from this affiliate to Wichita to Tulsa to Nashville, like what, and there, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've always been fascinated in this side of the business, being in the station world, I guess, but you're always trying to move up. You're always trying to progress into a bigger and better station. Is that correct?
Well, bigger station usually means bigger money.
Okay.
So that's
so they're chasing dollar bills.
Yeah,
okay.
They're pretty much doing that. And then sometimes they're going back trying to find family. So we've had some people that have worked here at Channel 6 that have family in Dallas. So they'll work here for 3 years, build their craft and abilities, and then they'll get a job in Dallas. So they get to be backed by family. And if you're probably I would say if you were going to wanted to be a mom and you wanted to have your mom or family there,
Sure.
a lot of people kind of will migrate back to where they might be. That's why I love for our staff, I love them to be pretty much local. So everybody here is pretty much local. And so like Stacia's local, she's from Independence, Kansas, but her family's here and her husband's from here. And so it kind of keeps people wanting to stay because Tulsa is such an incredible place, number one. I kind of hate to see it grow too fast and then have to turn it into big roads and all kinds of crazy stuff because we've got to me, I love Tulsa size. It's just a perfect size. But judging from the people that come in, a lot of people want to stay in Tulsa. But again, with like meteorology and stuff like that, there's even been, transitions between the TV stations. And I came from it, from an ABC affiliate to CBS. And so it just kind of depends upon where you want to maybe hang your hat at the end or where you want to be able to do that. In today's society, it's kind of hard to do that because there's so many things that change and ebbs and flows. But that's pretty much the overall plan, is that some come in with the idea of staying, but a lot come in learning their craft and then want to move on for either money or family, possibly someplace else.
That's awesome. All right, so we're going to wrap this up with some Tulsa questions.
Okay.
You had mentioned Tulsa, and obviously you have a big love for this wonderful city we live in. Over the years, I mean, since 82, I'm sure you've seen lots change.
Incredible amount.
What are some of those big things of either for the good or for the bad, some of those changes that's happened over the years that you've been kind of witnessing?
I would say probably the biggest impact that I have felt just from being around Tulsa is the arena, the OK Arena.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I was always kind of it's like, man, why does everybody bypass us? And, I love concerts if there's ever a chance to go see something fairly unique. And it was like, if we went to see it at the Civic Center, great, but most of the, nothing big was going to come. And it just seemed like once that happened, and even the ballpark downtown, and just looking at Guthrie Green in Tulsa, it's like, I have to tell people that don't live here and don't come into Tulsa very often, I say, it's really pretty doggone cool just to come and see, but it's so much more cool to be having been here before this evolved into what it is, a vibrant community, and being able to see how you can change a district, how you can change a zone in Tulsa. And because when we were going to move here, I was like, what the heck are we doing? Where there's nothing here. There's a dock with a bunch of old rusty tin. There's, nobody's here. A lot of people are just kind of sleeping here and, out.
You're talking about moving to this station.
Moving to our station here on the north side of downtown, for example.
Yeah.
I was like,
when did you guys move here again?
About 10 years ago. So that put it in 2014.
So it was, correct me if I'm wrong, BOK was 2010?
Right in there.
And then it was the ballpark.
And the ballpark.
And you guys were right there kind of in the mix.
Yeah, because but there wasn't anything really here. And then all of a sudden it exploded. Because there wasn't any place to eat downtown. I was like, and Channel 6 is a old
Spaghetti Warehouse. I mean.
It was I'm still sad that that's not there, but
your go-to dish at Spaghetti Warehouse.
That was all we had, so that's I'd eat there all the time. It's Mexicali now. It's because it's really close.
Okay.
But anyway, we to see that change and kind of into a nightlife, and because it was like Tulsa didn't have like a nightlife. You went to Brookside. That was cool when I was younger and stuff like that. But I was like, that was it. Cherry Street wasn't really Cherry Street and all that. So I would say that the evolution of kind of downtown a little bit is probably one of the bigger impactful things, not just for me, but just as I feel how the city has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then kind of watching the suburbs grow and sprawl. And it's kind of like you go down to Dallas-Fort Worth in the 80s, 90s and stuff. You go, man, that just added a couple miles on town. And then around here, if I don't get up to Owasso or if I don't get over into parts of Broken Arrow, I go, that was an open field. Now there's like 1,000 houses in there.
Right.
And so those are the things that, they just slowly creep up on people after you've lived here for a while. And then you just kind of realize it's like, wow, we're sprawling.
Well, I mean, you just got through saying it, your own lands are now being affected because of it.
I had a whole bunch of land, multiple hundred acres of land but down by Jinx and Bixby, Glenpool areas. And so that's just been taken back up, and people are leaving and selling or passing away that wanted to stay there for a long time and all that. And then here comes a housing addition, here comes a realtor, and here they come. So it's just filling in. All the voids are filling in right now.
What are you most excited about, going back to Tulsa, what are you most excited about with what's happening within this city right now, like current day, anything that you're really excited about?
I love how the districts are kind of popping up as far as what Tulsa's doing and making them kind of different. And even like Broken Arrow with the Rose District, kind of you get an opportunity to go to different places. I see Jinx is evolving right now, right before my eyes, because I was like, what just happened in Jinx? And so they're evolving right now.
Right.
And so you have multiple places to go for entertainment and to enjoy, because I just didn't ever feel that. Like I said, the 80s and 90s were fun, but it was just you were so limited on things. And what I think is for especially for younger people, and maybe for people that are older like me, that you know, if you have special places to go to eat, you have special unique things, go sit on a rooftop someplace and do things that you couldn't do before. You know, I just really like what's going on to bring energy to the city and to make it a destination. Because I was just recently on a rooftop. Can't remember the name of it right off the hand. It was downtown here, and we were sitting there, and we were getting ready to watch some fireworks from the drillers, and this other couple was sitting beside us, and they were here for a conference, and I was like, who comes to Tulsa for a conference? You know, because most of them are in Florida,
right.
Dallas,
Vegas,
and they were Southern California. And said, well, we had a conference here. I said, I like this city. And they said, the only thing that's weird is that you have a place called Heavy Traffic Way. So I didn't want to go on there, but I accidentally got on there. There was no cars. I said, what's wrong with this city? I said, we're loving it right now. So we're going to enjoy it while we don't have a lot of traffic. But that would be my big thing. I think the ability to enjoy, to grow culture. I mean, there's so much culture now that there wasn't before.
Sure.
All these things that nobody knows because you haven't lived here that long or you're younger and didn't really see how I don't want to say boring.
Sure.
The 80s were pretty boring. It was fun to go out and have big hair and do some things, but it was.
I mean, so I grew up here for the most part, but I remember seeing a lot of photos of downtown, the mall downtown. What was the name of the mall downtown? The Forum.
The Forum, yeah.
So,
Williams Forum
like when all that, and then this rebirth that we had in 2010, and now it seems that, man, everyone likes to compare us to Austin, but like we're kind of having our own moment right here. And it's very exciting.
It is
very exciting.
Yeah, and the Williams Forum, that was a cool place. We went there for 10 years, and then it's like, it's over with. We're making offices out of it. It's like, what the heck just happened there?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to throw another one out there just because we're sitting here talking about nostalgia. Camelot Hotel.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
We were just talking about the Camelot.
Nobody know. You have to look that up because that was a pretty cool hotel.
Dude, it was wild. It was really wild.
They said it was wild. And I was like, I didn't know that because I first got here and I was like, this is really cool. But I guess they just kind of wild time. Great place to have salads. I remember eating salads there a lot for whatever reason. But
That's
I was
really
just
funny. Salads at the Camelot Hotel.
Yep.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that I do wish that could have stuck around and become something because that was just such a unique hotel looking thing. And all that. But again, I really feel that where we're headed is a good place. Just got to hope. I just don't want AI to take over our lives. That's all. I want people to think. I want them to enjoy. But I kind of get a little concerned where we're headed that way.
Sure.
But as long as we have entertainment, we can all meet. That'd be fun.
All right. So last question here as we close here. Thank you so much, by the way. This has been such a fun meander through history and your own personal life. So thank you for that. But last question here is 42 years. Of being about how much longer? Where's the end of the line at here, Travis?
I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
And it's really hard for me because I love what I do. And it kind of depends on health, I say. It's kind of like God's decision pretty much on. It's like, are you healthy enough to continue? And can you stand on concrete for 6 or 8 hours at a time? And, you know, and then not like fall over or bend over and can't stand up for 3 days or whatever. But I would say 3 or 4 more years. I'd like to, that's my goal. I'd like to see if I could be here even say longer than I was at the other TV station or something like that. So that's,
so 45 years is the goal, huh?
Yeah, I think if we can get there, 45, maybe 46, since it's 6 and Channel 6, we might try that.
Wow.
It just, health is pretty much the biggest thing because I love this job and it's just so much fun if you can help people, you know, and do things like that because it's, and you get to meet people too.
Yeah.
I get to meet you and your entourage.
Well, thank you so much. You've not only impacted myself at a young age and our family. And you had mentioned earlier, and again, we'll close at this, but you mentioned the ability of not being able to, quote unquote, save people, But I think it's important to refocus that on how many people you have affected in the positive light because of your warnings, because of your insight of knowing where the storm is going. So let's close out with a positive. That's why you're held up to be the man you are today.
Well, it was it was an experience, and I'll say something too that I didn't say before. Jerry Weber, which was a super neat guy and an anchor at TV station here in Tulsa, he always said, the day that you think you're somebody, that's the day you're nobody. And I think that he was so right on those things. And when you can do what you're supposed to do, and then try to do it to the best of your abilities, and things get better, you feel better about it. You still have those moments that you can't take back moments because they're done.
Sure.
And you just can look forward to the future.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it
You're
so
welcome.
much.
Thank you.